Adam Fox is nominated for the King Clancy, but will this be his final season as a member of the New York Rangers?
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1527 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. We got a lot to talk about here today regarding Adam Fox. He has been nominated for the King Clancy Memorial Trophy. We'll get to that and talk about his credentials there and all his great work in due time in today's episode. Also, going to be going through, at the end of today's episode, a wish list of things that we would like to see from the New York Rangers the final two games of the regular season. I think a lot of things that we're going to get into in that section are mostly common sense, but then again, this is the Rangers. Common sense, the New York Rangers, they don't always go hand in hand. But we begin with Adam Fox, and, again, he's up for this award, but that to me also kind of made me think that it's a good time for us to talk about his potential future, or maybe even lack thereof, with the New York Rangers. To begin with, 3 years left on his deal at $9.5 million per season. That's after this season. So 3 more full seasons left after this season concludes. And, honestly, that in and of itself is kind of surprising and kind of hard to believe, because it felt like it wasn't really that long ago where he signed this massive contract extension, but it is down to just 3 years after this one ends. And as far as the clauses in this contract, I know a lot of us are always fixated on this because, as we know, the Rangers give out no-move clauses like their Halloween candy, but Fox has a full no-move clause for all of next season, and then the final 2 years of his deal, that will change from a full no-move clause to a no-trade list where he can block a trade to 16 different teams. And, speculation on Fox's future with this team began really ever since this team started plummeting in the standings this season, and it began to become very obvious to all of us and eventually to the Rangers themselves. It took a while for the Rangers to figure this out. I think most of us had it figured out before they did, but we all came to the conclusion eventually that this team needs to sell at the trade deadline rather than buy. And of course, that's mostly what they did. I mean, you get, Panarin being traded and Carrick and Susie. They maybe could have done more, but obviously chose not to. But the bottom line, you're seeing all this happen. Adam Fox is seeing all this happen. And the question then becomes, what does the future hold for Adam Fox? Is he going to be here for the long haul, or could he be the next guy out the door? And naturally, Ranger beat writers, they were asking Adam Fox this very question, and they were mentioning to him, you have leverage here and you hold all the cards because you have the full no-move clause. However, what do you think about your future with this New York Ranger team? And at the time, Fox was very non-committal. I don't have the exact quotes in front of me right now, but it was basically something along the lines of, just trying to win some games right now, just trying to help this team. And, we'll see what happens the rest of the season. There wasn't really a whole lot of like, oh man, I love this team, I'm a Ranger for life and all this stuff. And there could be multiple reasons for that. The lack of a ring endorsement by Adam Fox there. One of them, of course, being that, he was probably down at the time. You're coming up on the NHL trade deadline, and the heads are going to roll in terms of players getting traded. That a lot of your friends, a lot of your teammates with whom you've had these deep playoff runs, they're going to be shown the door, or at least there's a chance that could happen heading into the trade deadline. On top of all that, just the fact that the Rangers were doing nothing but losing. I mean, at a certain point, losing gets to everybody. And I think you'll forgive Adam Fox, or really anybody in that locker room, for not being like completely upbeat and vibrant when this team was going through a stretch where they lost like 15 out of 18 games or whatever it was during that wonderful stretch that this Ranger team had earlier this season. So it's possible that had more to do with the situation than Adam Fox looking for the door, that he was down about the entire situation. But then, of course, even before that, we had the entire Olympic scenario and the way that thing played out. There were these reports that, Mike Sullivan, Chris Drury, they both lobbied on Adam Fox's behalf, and they both wanted him on the U.S. Olympic hockey team. But it was a situation where Bill Guerin just would not budge, and he has final say, and so Fox wasn't there. Look, we might not ever know exactly how that played out behind closed doors. Maybe that's true. Maybe Sullivan and Drury were pounding their fists on the table, and we got to have our guy there, Adam Fox. He's an Olympian, he should be here, and all this stuff. Or maybe they were more than happy to go along with Bill Guerin's plan of not having Adam Fox there. But regardless of how this thing played out, Adam Fox is not an Olympian, and he missed out on the chance to win a gold medal, which is, of course, what the United States ended up doing in the Olympics. Does he hold that against the Rangers? Are there some bad feelings there? Does he feel like his coach and his GM didn't really go to bat for him in the way that they could have? That's all possible as well. So, again, between the non-committal comments and the fact that he was left off of the Olympic roster, despite there being a lot of guys in the Ranger organization making those decisions, you can start to see why. And on top of that, the Rangers, being where they are and looking to rebrand or rebuild or whatever they're doing at this point, you can see where the future becomes a little bit murky for Adam Fox. However, if you listen to Adam Fox over the last bunch of games here, really since the Olympic break when this team started playing a little bit better, and I understand they've lost their last 2 games, but for the most part, a much better brand of hockey. It does seem like he's feeling a little bit better when you watch some of these post-game interviews, when you read some of these post-game quotes. Now, again, part of the reason for that could be that the Rangers are, again, playing a little bit better. That'll, winning cures a lot of ailments, right? And so that might be why he's been a little bit more upbeat. And, maybe he, in the offseason, is still thinking about asking the Rangers for a trade. I mean, you never know what's going to happen, right? But what always kind of confuses me is the backlash that Adam Fox has received from certainly not all, but a lot of New York Ranger fans over. I mean, really, I feel like it began at the Four Nations. He wasn't on the ice for a goal against, I believe it was until the final game, and he was out there for the overtime winner for Canada. But man, I mean, there was some kind of a backlash there, and the amount of Ranger fans that almost feel like getting rid of Fox is addition by subtraction. I mean, you saw how bad this team was with him not being in the lineup, right? And he's been back, and it's not like everything has been perfect since he's been back, but it's been a heck of a lot better with him in the lineup than with him not in the lineup. And I don't think you can really call it a small sample size either. He missed a good chunk of the season, and he's been back for a good chunk of the season, and it's pretty much night and day. Now, of course, again, that's not the only reason for the Rangers turning things around, but I don't think you can look at it and say that it's not any reason. And as far as how the Rangers should handle this with Adam Fox moving forward, I think with Adam Fox, you're kind of in a holding pattern right now. You wait and see how things go moving forward, because Adam Fox is only 28 years old. He'll only be 31 when his contract expires. And so I don't think you need to rush to do something this offseason. I feel like the best thing is you kind of just wait and see how it goes moving forward. Adam Fox is not the kind of guy where a season from now, his trade value is just going to fall off a cliff. The Rangers right now, their game plan, and we could debate the merits of this if they're going about this the right way, but their game plan is to do a quick fix. That's why they called it, a retooling rather than a rebuild, right? I do think that's an important distinction. And with that being the case, look, if they can put things back together quickly, then I think you're going to want to have Adam Fox on this roster. However, if next season begins and continues and the Rangers are losing and losing and losing again, and nothing's going right, and it becomes obvious that they need to do a full-fledged rebuild and they need to continue to build a new foundation and move the veterans out of here, maybe then trading Adam Fox becomes something of a viable option. And he's got the full no-move clause, but that will go away after the end of next season. So to me, you cross that bridge when you come to it. But the Rangers right now should be in no hurry to move on from Adam Fox. There's just no reason to do that. And my hope is that Adam Fox, these last handful of games, bunch of games after the Olympic break here, maybe they've given him at least a little bit of hope in the future of the Rangers, and he starts to feel good about this again. I mean, Adam Fox, that's another thing that's lost in all this. He's having a heck of a season. The injuries and everything, and the controversy with the Olympics, and does he still want to be here? Should the Rangers look to move on from him? Should they really go with a rebuild and trade Adam Fox? All this stuff. Adam Fox is having a great season. He's basically flirting with point per game territory. I think he's a point or two off the mark right now, but he's a heck of a player, and I feel like he's young enough where you can hang on to him through this retooling that the Rangers are doing right now, and hopefully the Rangers can come out of it on the other side. Adam Fox is still here, and he's still contributing to this team. And I think a great player to compare him to in a situation like the one that I just laid out is Chris Kreider. Kreider was either going to be traded or extended at the deadline the 1 year. The Rangers extended him. Another rough season or two, but they got things turned around, and Kreider was part of obviously some winning down the stretch his final couple of seasons here. The final season, obviously, notwithstanding. But you get the idea. I think Fox can see the other side of this rebuild. It's at least possible, and that the Rangers should be in really no hurry to do anything rash when it comes to moving on from Adam Fox. And again, I hope Fox is on board with sticking with the Rangers through this process that they're going through right now. So we'll keep everything moving in just a second. Want to shift our attention to Fox being nominated for the King Clancy. And then I've also got some items on a wish list. To me, again, these are common sense things that the Rangers should be doing, but it's the Rangers, so who knows for sure. We'll get to all that good stuff in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. If you've got a sweet tooth, you know how tough it is to find that perfect treat without all the sugar. That's why Cotton Candy 5 Hour Energy Shot brings that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. This is that classic cotton candy taste you remember, but with a tasty caffeine boost and zero sugar. It's a quick, easy way to satisfy that sweet craving while keeping things simple and on the go. The flavor really does bring that throwback fruity vanilla vibe, and it's surprisingly smooth. It's a great go-to when you want something sweet without going overboard. It's very convenient too. It's just a small portable shot that you can grab whenever you need a little pick-me-up. Bring on the sweetness with Cotton Candy 5 Hour Energy Shots, available now online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is also brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you must fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate randomly stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes, less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All right, big shout out to the Everydayers. As always, thank you guys so much for supporting this podcast through all the ups and downs of Ranger hockey. And do not forget to check out our new Everydayer Club for ad-free episodes and access to a group chat with me and other listeners of the show. Tap the link in the show notes or go to lockedonnyrangers.supercast.com. And for the Everydayers, second to last game of the season tonight, if you can possibly believe that, Rangers going to be back in action on the road against the Panthers. Whatever happens there, we'll break it down the next one. Also want to talk about Adam Fox being nominated for the King Clancy Memorial Trophy. It's that time of year. It's, award season around the NHL. And as far as like this trophy and what it represents, it's named in honor of Francis M. King Clancy, who played with the Senators and the Leafs and later became a coach, a referee, and a team executive, widely recognized for being a great humanitarian. And this award goes to, and this is the exact language here, it goes to the player who best exemplifies leadership qualities on and off the ice and has made a noteworthy humanitarian contribution in his community. So I think Adam Fox is a great choice. All 32 teams nominate one player. So, it's up to the team, whoever they want to be nominated. But Fox is also the Ranger nominee last season, somebody who's been very charitable. And it's been given out, has this award since 1987, 1988. And one thing that I'm sure a lot of you are aware of that Adam Fox is doing this season, which I think is really cool, he's making charitable contributions to support ALS research for every goal and every assist that he racks up this season. For some background on this, Adam Fox's father was diagnosed with ALS back in 2016. So this is a cause that is obviously very near and dear to his heart. And what Fox is doing this season, and again, some of you I'm sure are aware of this, he's donating $1,023 for every goal he scores this season, and also $523 for every assist that he collects this season. And when I first saw those numbers, going into the season, I'm thinking like, okay, where do you come up with that? 23, 1,023, 523. But of course, Adam Fox wears number 23. So that would be the reason why. And in 53 games this season, again, he missed some time due to injury, but 53 games, he has scored 9 goals and picked up 43 assists. That is a total of 52 points in 53 games, which means he has thus far donated $31,696. And we'll see if he can add on to that in these last two games here. But look, just being nominated for an award like this, I think, is a great thing. It means you're doing something to better the lives of others. And that's obviously something that's very important. I think it's also worth pointing out in this section that two other former Rangers were nominated for this award. Ryan McDonough is the nominee for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Alex Wenberg is the nominee for the San Jose Sharks. So, obviously a huge congratulations to all these players, all the different nominees, and obviously big time congratulations to Adam Fox, the second straight season at least that he's been nominated for this award. And as far as like a historical context, only one Ranger has ever won this award. That would be Adam Graves in 1993, 1994, which should come as a surprise to absolutely no one. I mean, Adam Graves is universally beloved. I mean, he was beloved as a player, and then the things that he's done away from the ice, during his playing career and post-retirement, just great stuff all around. But he was nominated for he actually won it, for his extensive community work, notably served as the celebrity chairman of New York's Family Dynamic Program. That is a charity that assists abused children. And that's obviously great work there by Adam Fox. And 93, 94, that's obviously also the year that the New York Rangers won the Stanley Cup. So again, just great stuff all around by Adam Fox here, being nominated for this award, and, fingers crossed that he wins it. But again, I think the players would tell you this too. It's not really about winning this award. I mean, I think being nominated is plenty of recognition in its own right. And even if you're not nominated, I mean, being charitable and going out into the community and helping people less fortunate than you, it's obviously very important. And obviously Adam Fox has done exactly that over the past year. So great stuff there. We're going to keep everything rolling in just a second here. I want to shift our attention to the Rangers' final two games. We got a little bit of a wish list going on here. Again, I've said this earlier in the episode. To me, these are layups. They're common sense. We'll see if the Rangers feel the same way. We will get to that in just a second. All right, we just want to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Rocket Money. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. Rocket Money tracks all your subscriptions in one spot and can help cancel the ones you do not need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going, and you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked-on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers by giving you guys a little bit of a wish list. And feel free to chip in here. If you're watching on YouTube, get into the YouTube comment section there and let us all know what you would like to see from this team in the final two games that they will play this season. For starters here, and I think this one is going to happen. It sounds like it's going to happen. I would like to see Jonathan Quick start at least one of these final two games. This could be Quick's final season as a member of the New York Rangers. If I had to bet, I would say it probably is. It could also be the final season of Quick's NHL career, and that depends on if he wants to keep going, if there's a team that has an offer for him, we will see. But certainly that's a possibility that's on the table. And who knows? Quick might still be deciding. He might have already decided one way or the other. We don't know for sure. But the possibility is at least on the table. So I'd like to see him get one more game. Now, granted, Quick was awesome in his most recent start. He just missed a shutout. The Wings ended up scoring with like 30 seconds left, whatever it was. I know it was less than a minute. But the Rangers won that game 4-1, and Quick was awesome in that game. He stopped 31 of the 32 shots that he faced. And I mean, that could be a heck of a way to go out. But at the same time, I mean, we all know Jonathan Quick is a competitor, and I would imagine that he would probably want one more game if given that option between now and the end of the season. And there's two games left, as we mentioned. It's either tonight at the Panthers or Wednesday at the Lightning. I would say putting him out there tonight against the Panthers is probably the way to go. And as of me pushing record a couple of minutes ago, the Rangers had not announced a starting goalie for that game. That, of course, could change by the time this episode is up, but as of now, no announcement on that front. As far as why the Panthers, I mean, to begin with, they're just less of a scoring threat than the Lightning. Tampa's still got everything to play for. They're going to the playoffs, but they are 2 points behind both Buffalo and Montreal, and they currently sit in third place in that division. So if they can pass one of those teams, they get home ice in the first round. If they can pass both of them, then obviously they win the division. They'll be matched up with one of the wildcard teams. So they have a lot to play for. On top of that, Tampa is fourth in the NHL in goals scored with 284. And on the other side of that, the Panthers are 12th to last in goals scored with only 240. And perhaps even more importantly, the Panthers at this point have nothing left to play for. They've got a boatload of injuries. No Barkov, no Marchand, no Rodriguez, no Mikkola. Those guys are all injured right now. And they currently, on Puckpedia at least, they are listed with 17 forwards and 10 defensemen on their NHL roster right now. And obviously, some of those guys being on LTIR, that's part of the reason for that. But it all points to the Panthers going with a skeleton roster for this game. There's going to be some guys out there that you've never or barely have even heard of. And so, to me, that makes that a much easier matchup for Jonathan Quick, and it gives him a much better chance to go out with, another strong performance at the end of this season. So, we'll see what happens, but I would want Quick out there tonight. Something else that I would love for the Rangers to do, and they should do, and they better do this. Drew Fortescue needs to be back in the lineup for the final two games. We talked about in our last episode the controversy surrounding the decision to make Drew Fortescue a healthy scratch in the most recent games. And there's a lot of theories as far as why this happened. Mike Sullivan would have you believe that it was just a hockey decision and he's got to work on some things and blah, blah, blah. And that might be partially true. I mean, we've seen Sullivan scratch the young guys in favor of veterans more times than we can possibly count this season, right? But there were some other factors that came up and seemingly may have contributed to the decision to sit down Drew for that last game. To begin with, the $80,000 performance bonus. The $80,000 performance bonus that Drew Fortescue will not be getting, because for him to get that $80,000, he would have needed to play in at least 10 games for the Rangers this season. He debuted in the 10th to last game of the season, and now that he's missed one, there's only 2 games left. The most amount of games he can possibly play is 9 games. If that's the reason the Rangers did that, that's a completely BS reason, and I'm completely against it. However, there was the other reason that a lot of people brought up, and this one has some merit, but even this is a little bit of a stretch. The fact that Fortescue not playing 10 games this year means that he will not be able to be offer sheeted by another team. So, okay, fine. But you look at the way the NHL goes, and nobody ever gets offer sheeted anyway. It barely ever happens. And is Fortescue a prime candidate for that years from now? I mean, if he is, it's kind of good news for the Rangers, because it would mean that teams are willing to give up draft picks to potentially get him on their roster. But I don't know. I mean, to me, that's such a remote possibility that it's almost not worth worrying about. But the bottom line, Drew Fortescue needs to play these final 2 games because that's been taken care of now. He can't get offer sheeted. He can't get his $80,000 bonus. He should be out there for the last 2 games. I'd like to even see Drew's ice time increase, because why not, when you look at where the Rangers are this season? But with all the lapses in Ranger logic, I'll at this point just settle for him being in the lineup. And whatever ice time he gets is the amount of ice time he gets. If we really want to be wild and crazy, we can even try Fortescue out there on the penalty kill. Because again, why not? Just get him some experience doing a couple different things, being on the ice in different situations. And if it costs you a goal, it costs you a goal. I mean, you're not going to the playoffs anyway. So what does it really matter at this point? Get him some experience and, obviously, get him ready to go for next season, when he should at least have a chance to make the opening night roster. We will see there. Another thing, very general wish on my wish list here, continue to show some fight. We discussed this quite a bit in a recent episode, but these Ranger players noticeably have really had each other's backs down the stretch this season. I think one of the more notable example was the most recent game against the Stars. Jamie Benn was getting into it with everybody, and he put Vladislav Gavrikov into the boards from behind, and you had Fox jump on Ben, you had Cartier jump on Ben, and you had JT Miller drop the fights with Jamie Benn. So to see these guys kind of come together and watch out for each other the way that they have, from March to current day, that's promising as well. And obviously we hope that that's a trend for this team going into next season as well. And look, the Rangers are playing the Panthers and the Lightning to end the season. These are 2 teams with which there is not a lot of love lost, mean, I know the Panthers, a lot of their top guys aren't going to be out there. And Tampa, I mean, they're going into the playoffs, so probably nobody wants to do anything dumb and like risk a suspension or anything like that. But you got to believe the temperature is going to rise in both of these games, and the Rangers need to be ready for it, and they need to watch out for each other while these games are happening. I think also we're cheating on this one a little bit because the Rangers can't like directly control this, but something that I think we would all like to see, more wins for the Calgary Flames. The Flames actually won a game. They beat Utah 4-1 in their most recent game. The Flames and the Rangers, for anybody keeping an eye on the Tankathon standings, they are now tied for third to last in the NHL with 75 points each. Each team has 2 games remaining. The Flames have the tiebreaker, which means they would finish ahead of the Rangers in the standings if they ended up with the same amount of points. And to end the season, for anybody wondering about this, the Flames are at home against the Avalanche, tough game, and at home against a desperate Kings team, which now controls its own destiny for the playoffs, another tough game. I think something we should kind of root for here is for the Kings to clinch their playoff spot before they play the Flames, because if that's the case, maybe they rest some guys, they take their foot off the gas a little bit, and that becomes a more winnable game for the Flames, and then the Flames can finish ahead of the Rangers in the standings. As you guys know, I can't root against the Rangers, but I can certainly root for the other bad teams that are, surrounding the Rangers in the standings, and one of those teams is obviously the Flames. So go Flames for the last 2 games here. And this one's kind of a random wish that I've got for the last 2 games here. But I would like to see one or both of them go into overtime and or a shootout, particularly the last game against Tampa Bay, because I just feel like getting a dramatic overtime win, a dramatic shootout win at the end of the season, that could be a lot of fun for the players. It could be a lot of fun for all of us as well. And you end on a positive. You end with some dramatics. You end on a high note. Now, it's not the same as, winning the Stanley Cup, obviously, because all the other teams in the playoffs, 15 of the 16 will end their season with a loss. But, with the Rangers, obviously, they're not going to be part of the playoffs. End your season with a win and do it in overtime or a shootout. That could be a lot of fun. And if this were to happen in the final game against Tampa Bay, then we get a little bit of extra hockey. The Ranger season doesn't quite end when we think it's going to. We get a fun, exciting overtime period and or a shootout to end things. That could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. But a little bit more Ranger hockey at the end of the season, that won't hurt anybody. And, as bad as the season has been, and as much as people might hate to admit this, you are going to miss the Rangers at some point. I'm sure you'll enjoy the break at first, and maybe some of you will tune into the playoffs, like I certainly will. But sooner or later, we get into the summer, and we get through the draft and free agency and everything, and then everything kind of slows down a little bit in July and in August. At a certain point, you're going to miss Ranger hockey, and you're going to want it to be back. So, I do hope that we have some dramatics, some exciting wins down the stretch for this Ranger team in the final 2 games here. We will see. One more thing that I want to mention here before we call it. Hartford Wolfpack has been eliminated from playoff contention. And in a league where the top 6 of 8 teams in the division make the playoffs, the Hartford Wolfpack will not be getting into the postseason. So that's obviously a tough blow, but it is what it is. I mean, they weren't any good this season either, if we're being completely honest. And they will not be in the playoffs either. But we'll call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @jchick17. Once again, @jchik17. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.